Okay guys, so this is Cardi. Hi. I'm going to get you started with learning how I do photo manipulations. You're probably going to do them your own way. There's a lot of guides and tutorials out there, especially say on DeviantArt. So definitely look at those resources as well. I have already started on this one in pretty good ways. I'm going to take you back and show you the steps that I've already gone through. Now I'm using Photoshop, but you can do this in most other editing software. Um, let's see. I'll actually show you on my screen right here. This was my original stock image. You see, it's one that's already kind of worked on a little. We're going to open a new tab, and you can go to Pixlr, Pixlr.com. Now, this one is a good one. Um, it'll work pretty well. It'll have the same layer settings that I'm going to use. So the important thing is your layer settings. Pixlr is pretty good. There's also Photopea.com. Now, Photopea, I will link these in the description if I remember to. Photoshop, you can see, is almost a clone, or Photopea. Wow. Photopea is almost a clone of Photoshop. It's very similar. It's made to be a clone. I have not, however, been able to get it to, I don't know, recognize my tablet. I have not tried with my new tablet, but it never recognized my old tablet. So Photopea is a really good option. It does have, if we go to new, we'll just make a new, any new project. This is fine. You can see here it has all the same layer options as Photoshop. So it's going to have as much of compatibility as possible. The other program people use, I don't know the website for it, is GIMP. GIMP is, we'll leave the page. GIMP is a free image manipulation program that a lot of people use. I'm not familiar with it. I've used it a couple times and I'm not comfortable with it, but people do also use it. It does also have the same layer settings. Excuse me. If you're familiar with it, then yeah, by all means, go ahead and use it. Now, we're going to jump back over here, right back into the manipulation. Now, I'm using a Huion tablet. So I'll be doing this with a tablet, but you can do this with a mouse as well. We'll probably go over that in another video in the future because there's ways you can get the same effects without using the tablet. Now the first thing I did is here's my original image. Okay, it's just sitting there as a layer. On top of it, will set it back to normal. I drew in the color I wanted. Now I color picked it from over here. I just color picked it brown because this character, Cecily, she is primarily ginger. Now, you just color it in, the shape of the wolf. Now for this drawing, I used a size 27 soft round brush. Now this is not very big, but what it does, I'll show you on another layer really quick, just make a new layer here. The soft brush makes it so that you can get close to the edges. You don't have to get all the way to the edges, but you don't want to go over the edge like this, or when you set it to multiply, like the other layer, it will show over it. So you can even set the layer to multiply as you're doing it so that you can see how far to go. The lighter you press if you're using a tablet, the firmer or harder the edges will be, see? As opposed to this, which is super blended and super fuzzy. So yeah, you just take your time and fill it in. I've already done that step, so we're going to go ahead and delete that layer. So this is all filled in. You'll notice I didn't do it perfectly. It does not have to be perfect to every single hair, because when you set it to multiply, it still looks pretty decent. What you can do, if you're a perfectionist, which I usually am, is you come in with a little smudge brush. We'll turn this down to the strength, determines how strong it pulls it. See here? We're going to set it back to 40 or so, and then it won't pull it as far. And you can use it to kind of pull that color out, just like that. So we can do that. I'm not too worried about it. I think this is going to turn out fine. Well, I'm going to go ahead and do it a little bit, I guess. We'll just do it around these parts that really, really show. I think that just about does it. I don't think there's really anywhere else here that Cecily needs it. A little bit here on her head. For the most part, her image came out fine. There's not a lot more we need to do. Now, the next step is one I'll recommend to everybody. I'm actually going to show you how I did this before I talk about it. So, you hold Control and click on the icon for this layer. That's going to select the entirety of that layer. I'm going to go back down and select the layer the image came from. I'm going to copy, which is Control C. I use a lot of shortcuts, so I'm trying to go over it with you. I'll try to slow down as I do it. So you Control C, go back to your image layer up here and paste it. Notice it. If you do it great, it will paste that image back over top of it. I set this one to linear light. Now what linear light does, linear light, vivid light, and hard light all do similar things. Here I'll show you linear light, vivid light. Vivid light is a little bit more yellow. I didn't prefer it for this one. Hard light is a little less harsh, but I liked the linear light in this case, just because I really need these highlights. Now the next thing I did is I went through and I erased, just like this, those super dark areas, because I don't want to make her darker. She's not really a dark character. She's gray underneath, not black. So I went through and I erased them, and I got it just right, so that when I was finished, I had this. So I've erased all the dark areas, and I've only got the highlights I wanted. The whole point in doing that was to grab the highlights, which are natural to the fur. So now I've set this back down to 20%, because you want to lower it. I usually do 30 to 40%, but this character in this image, this layer needs to be, oh, I think it was 26. 26. Okay, yeah, 26 seems to be about right. So here we have 26, and you can hide and show it to see the difference. It helps to make her highlights pop. She looks like she has depth still. You could do without it. It still looks okay. I prefer having it because it adds depth. The only issue with doing it on this one is up here on her forehead. It looks, yeah, you can see it right here. There's these light areas have no texture to them anymore. And that's the fault of the image I chose. If we look at the main image, it's already like that. But that's because this original image, the wolf was very light, so those areas lost detail in the rendering. So what I've done is I came in with a size 3 brush, so one of these, with white, so I switched my colors using the X key on Photoshop. It switches your colors back and forth. I switched over to white, and I came in and I painted on white fur. I'm on the wrong layer. Hold on. Make a new layer. So you paint on white fur. You follow, like this is a tuft of fur here. You just kind of follow that, and you paint on some fur in the middle, just very lightly. Now, if you have a mouse and you have no pressure sensitivity, then go ahead and try using a size 1 with a 50% opacity here, because then you can kind of build it up slowly. Either way, just take your time. Don't rush it. Size 3, size 1, size 2 brush, just something small. So I've done that on this layer. I'll set it back so you can see it. I've done that. I've added little details there. I did some on the cheek, and I did some down here on the body, which you can see also has a few missing details. Now I set this to overlay, which helps the color pop. It's too bright up here on top of the head. So I then set the layer itself to 50%. And you'll see that's just enough to have that little bit of texture. We'll delete this extra layer. Now what we can do to see how we're looking so far is we just hide these really quick. And we see, yeah, that looks pretty similar to the original wolf, but it's ginger. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to duplicate this layer. This layer with the color colored in is our key layer for everything we do with this image. That's the shape of what we're drawing on, and we don't want to lose that shape. So we're gonna duplicate this one. Let me rewind a little bit. Okay, so we've duplicated that one. We're gonna hide it for now. We'll use it in a minute. These layers, highlight them, select them. I don't know whether or not the program you'll be using will allow you to do this, but if you use Photopea as an example, it will let you do it. You highlight your layers and create a clipping mask. It's not always called a clipping mask. Sometimes it's called a layer mask, but you want to do that. So any new layer you put above the image, actually no, we're not doing that for this image. Sorry, we're not doing that right now. This is a different process. Okay, so don't do that for now. We'll come back to how to... Okay, it's fine. Let's move on. So we duplicated this layer. We're going to set it to color. Now what this does is it preserves the color we want for the character. You can see we lose some of that nice timber coloration, so we're going to turn it down to about here. See, we keep some of that very lightly down here. Now, Cecily here has this nice gray color under her face, on her neck, it goes down, it's all over her undersides. We're going to see it primarily on her face, so that's what we're going to work on. I'm going to grab a size 27 brush. I'm going to set the opacity of my brush to 30. Now, if you have a brush that you're actively out and using, you'll see me do it a lot. I won't say I'm doing it, but I'll probably do it automatically. If you type 3, 4, 5, so wait a second. If you type 4 or 5 quickly, it will set it to 45. If you wait a minute and you type 6 on your keyboard, it will jump it to 60. I think you can type 100 to put it back to 100%. So while you're using your brush, you don't even have to go up here and touch it. All you have to do is type on your numbers at the top of your keyboard, and it will set the opacity for you as you need it, however you press the keys. If you do it quickly, it'll set it, say, 44%. If you wait a minute and only tap it once, tap the 3 once, it sets it to 30%. That's really useful to know because I play with the opacity of my brush a lot and things like this because it's important. Okay, so we have Cecily here. We've got this layer. I don't name my layers. I might do that with the next one just so that you guys can more easily keep track of what I'm doing. But for right now, it's okay. We've got our color layer right here. We're going to lock the transparency right here. Now in the program you're in, it might say something different, but you're still locking the colors of the layer or you're locking the transparency of the layer. You are making it so that if you draw on this layer, it doesn't go outside of the layer. See, nothing is happening except for where I'm drawing. So we're going to put our opacity back up to 30 or 40. Let's try 40. Yeah, see? Okay, so it's working. And we just slowly take your time. Okay, take your time. Paint on the undercolor or the gray or the whatever color you're working on. You don't want to just say 45 at 100%. You don't want to just do this, which you can. You can. You can just draw it on like this. It's a possibility. It looks okay. It's fine. It's actually technically feasible within Dawn's terms of standards. Dawn being the website that I make these for and roleplay on. But if you do it at a 40 or a 50 or a 30%, and you come in and you do it like a painting, nice and soft, then you get a much more natural, much more blended effect. And that's what we're going for here. Now what I need to do here is I'm going to flip her image horizontally so that I'm looking at the same marking. Now I'm doing this all on one monitor, so I have to squish her over here a little. Because what I've got here is she's got this up here, which now erasing is the same way. Select around the same size, set it to a low opacity, and erase a little bit. Okay, so under her eye, you can see it's pretty deep under her eye, so I need to not go quite that far up. She has a little bit here. We'll add that in there. And then it comes up, almost coming off from the corner of her eye, like so. I'll paint it on, and then I'm switching to my eraser, and I gently erase. I'm going to go ahead and re-add color, and then I gently erase. And it's a process. It takes time. And you just do it where you feel you need it. There we go. She has, you can just barely see it on the image, very faintly gray eyebrows. So I'm going to get those in there. Now, that looks pretty good. It doesn't look bad. We're going to go ahead and do, you can see the back of her neck has it too, in a light opacity. So we're just going to go ahead and paint it on, like so. This looks good. And then I'm going to come in with a slightly larger brush because I want it to look softer where I'm erasing it, so I'm using a larger brush, and I'm going to do it at a lower opacity. Instead of 30, I'm going to go to 40. I'm sorry, I said that backwards. Instead of 40%, I'm going to erase it at a 30%. I'm going to go once and then twice because we're fading this right here, just like we are on her original image over here. Then I'm going to look at these, compare them a little bit. Now, you're not going to notice it on this image because of the angle, but she has a strip of color, I guess, here, this orange here, which, oops, okay, which you're not going to see on this. So this is all going to look like one streamlined color because we don't have a good representation of her shoulder. We just don't have it. I guess that we can do like this. This will help signify that shoulder a little bit. Now, similarly to erasing a moment ago, I want to make this larger because I'm covering a larger area and you'll see it fades a little bit down here on her back. So let's figure out where it will fade on her. It's a cape right behind her shoulder blade. This through here is her shoulder blade, so I'm just going to use her natural cape in the image. And here we go. Just carefully paint it in. Doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be spot on just yet. Take your time with it. Just have some fun. We got a little bit more down here. But then you'll notice as well, right here, at the ends of this gray is a more yellow color. So I'm going to come in with my brush at 30%. And I'm just going to very gently, very softly, one stroke. She doesn't need any more than that. Add that back in. I'm going to go back in with a gray, just faintly on the edge of that. Or a slightly more tan gray, I guess. There we go. Look at that. Now some more spots on this image that you're not going to see is, say, her underside, her legs, except for, this is hard to tell, but on her, this is her hip, and this is her leg, and if you ever look at how a dog lays, you'll see this area. She's got her leg curled up beside her. So we'll go ahead and paint this in, and then we'll re-choose a brown that's similar to her brown, and just do that. So it's a hint of that pretty gray. Now, not bad, huh? Now if we turn this up, you can see how very gray it is. Turn it down a little bit, turn it up a little bit. That's pretty good. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to take a new layer. So this is our color layer. This determines the color of her fur. So on a new layer, we'll leave it on normal for now. We're going to hit this button. That makes our colors black and white again. We're going to flip them so white is our primary color. In the same way that we painted the gray on the first time, we're going to come in. You can use the larger brush for this, it's fine. You don't even have to make it solid white. You just come in and get some white down there and across where her back is, where we've laid the gray. Because I want the gray to be a little bit lighter, because remember, it's her undercoat. It's not meant to be black, it's not meant to be reminiscent of black or any other color. So we're going to come in with this lighter white, and I'll show you what we're doing with it in just a moment here. We're going to set it to soft light. Look at that. That's a little too white. It looks more like white first. I'm going to take it back a little bit. Now what this does is it takes the shadows out of up here on her muzzle, especially. See that? It makes it look like a more neutral gray. We can actually go ahead and erase with a 50%. This here on her shoulders. I'm going to go ahead and erase it entirely, so 100%. I'm not on the right layer for erasing it. That's why it's not working. I was erasing whatever this layer is. I think that's, okay, so that layer was unaffecting it anyway. Again, we're going to gently erase right here across her shoulders. Okay, we notice if we erase it, it's too much if we do it. So let's erase it at 50%. There we go. Okay, that works. We're going to turn our opacity up a little bit so she's a little more gray in those places. And just like that, we've got slightly lighter color. Now you'll notice that right here, you'll barely see it. I got some white on the background, and you see it change the background color. Look right here. You might not even see it. It changes here. If you're on this layer, see here how it lightens the background? So hold Control, select your original layer. This selects this color. Now select Inverse. Choose the layer where you made your boo-boo. You went outside your lines, basically. Select that layer, hit Delete. That will put everything back to your boundaries. That's what I was talking about earlier with making sure things stay within your layers, since we can't clip this to the shape of the layer beneath it. Now, something that I've noticed while working on this is that she is a little bit too orange. That's just a side effect of how we have to do her manipulation. She's a little too orange. She's a little too unnatural orange. So we're going to actually take this and turn it all the way up. We're going to, again, Control, click, so that we select our colors. We're going to go to our original image. Down here, layer 1. This is our very first photo, the one we started out with, and we're going to Control C. We're going to go back on top of everything we've done. So click your top layer and paste it with Control V. Now we've got our original here. Now this is going to be an interesting step. I don't always do this step. I'm doing it on this one because I want to pull out some of these natural colors. We're going to go to up here and set it to color. Now you'll notice that affected it a lot. So we're not going to use that a lot. We're only turning it up just enough. Notice Now, she's not as bright. And that's all we're doing. We used the same image, the same thing to dull it out. Maybe we dulled it out too much, so we're going to take it back down to 16%. We just do what you feel is right. That looks good to me. She's not super bright, but she's still very ginger. Now we're going to come back in and we'll select the gray from right here, because we forgot to do the inside of this ear. So for this one, come back down to our color layer. I'm going to do it at 50%. And just, again, paint it in gently. I'm going to switch back and choose her brown. And at 30%, I'll erase. I didn't actually set it to 30, I set it to 40. 30%. Just the tips of the inside of the ear. There you go. That makes it blend, makes it look a little more natural. We're going to go back to our soft light layer, set ourselves back to black and white, go back to our white, and fill in inside the ear, paint it in, so that that brightens the inside of the ear as well, which needs it, because again, her gray fur is not meant to look too dark. Okay, so we've gotten this far with it. She's looking really good. We are going to tweak her colors a little bit as we go, but this is looking phenomenal. Okay, so something we're going to do now is we're going to go to our eraser. We're going to turn it up to 200 and 200 in size, opacity 30. We are going to, we're using the clone stamp tool. That's not even our eraser. Okay, eraser, 200. Set it to 30. Okay. I think that with this layer, it grays her back out a little bit too much. So I'm going to erase on the layer I've made right here. This layer. I'm just going to erase there. So now we've got that color restored, but her head, which was too bright before, is restored. They match a little bit more in between them. That's good. She's looking really good. On a new layer above that, again, I did mention before, we're going to have a lot of layers. We're going to go back to right click, brush size. We're going to go smaller. Here we go. Okay. This size. Now, I'm not going to do her blaze exactly like it is on here. It's a reference image. This is her first ever minute. I'm going to change it very slightly. So anyways, we're going to come in with a size, or opacity 30 brush, and we're going to gently build up the white where we want it. She's got paint. I'll have her have to paint this little trail going down. And it's going to end up here between her ears. And it's going to be similar to the image where it's a little bit wider between her, on her forehead there. Now this we're going to set to soft light. You notice that made it lighter. We're going to duplicate it, set it to color. Okay, turn the color down very slightly, and then we're going to duplicate the one down here again. Actually, no, let's not duplicate it again. Let's make a new layer over top of both of those. Very light, like thinner than before. So if I invert this, you'll see it fits within the other portion that we've already done. So thinner than before. We'll add on a little more white, and we're going to set this one to soft light again. There we go. That adds her blaze. Now, I think this is a little too hard. So we're going to go down to the first layer we did it on. Get our eraser at, yeah, it's a good size, 30%. We're going to erase the end of it here and the end of it here very, very lightly. Erase our color a little bit because that's going to help it blend. Up here, again, erase our end. There we go. Now this still doesn't look white to me, which in itself is a problem. So we're going to bring it up. That's our soft light. Bring our color to the top and turn it up. We're going to duplicate our color layer. Just don't worry about it. Then we're going to set it to soft light again. And here we have a girl with a blaze. And there you go. It's nice and soft. It looks pretty natural. I mean, none of these are going to look 100% natural because they're not natural. That's kind of the point of it. But it needs to look as if it could be. It could be natural. That could be, it looks like it maybe was already there. To add to that effect, we can make our eraser a little smaller. We've got it at 30%. We're going to erase on this top side a little bit where it's just a little bit too wide. On each of our layers, we'll just do 3 or 4 strokes, a little at a time, until it's better blended up there. Because we want the middle part of it to be the widest portion. And there we go. Not bad at all. Okay, so we are almost done with this one. I'm going to go ahead and do her eye color. Now, one of her eyes is yellow and the other is hazel, and I'd really like this one to be the one that stands out the most. So the first thing we're going to do is go down to the first layer we created, which was our multiply layer. Grab our eraser at a size 13. You see that's not too much bigger. We'll turn the opacity on it back up to 100%. And erase around the eye here, just right here, so that it's not making that darker. That's all we want to do. We want to come to our color layer, unlock your layer so you can edit it, and erase there a little bit. We want to return our original color to the eye. Now, on a new layer, whole new layer up here, we're going to do a brush size 13, that will do 9, and we're going to choose the colors we want here. Her eyes are amber, so something like this, and green. So an amber and green hazel. I'm going to have the amber be the primary color. So 100% amber. Just the shape of the color of the eye. Set this to color. See, it makes it gold. Lock your transparency. Now swap your colors. So you've got your green. Go into your brushes and let's do a soft brush around the same size. There you go. On another layer, a whole new layer on top. Change your brush to size 3. I'm going to make it back to black and white. Let's go to our white at 50% opacity. So do it in portions. Gently paint on some white bits for the eye. Then on a new layer, and a size 5, we're going to do 30% opacity. 1, 2, each stroke slightly smaller than the one above it. Come back in. We're going to set these to overlay. Now this makes it a lot brighter than it should be. So we're going to find our eye color layer. We're going to turn its opacity down very slightly. There we go. We've got an amber color with green in the middle, hazel. It looks natural. We've re-added the eye shine. Oops. We've re-added the eye shine naturally where it would appear. And this is what she looks like. Isn't she nice? Okay. So we've done all of this, and I want to do a step that will let me edit the background without touching the main wolf. Because if we edit this wolf right here, let's say I were to erase that wolf, then you erase what you've done, and we don't want to do that. So we're going to select, control click our first layer again. I'm going to add this one to it as well, because this layer we didn't erase the eye, so that way we're also selecting the eye. And we're going to, on this layer 1, control C to copy, control V to immediately paste. That puts a wolf here, so that if we erase this layer, we've still got our original wolf. Oh, we should copy and paste our nose as well. So we're going to undo, control Z, control Z. Alright, so put us back to where we was. So let's reselect our layers, and then with our lasso tool, make sure you have anti-lasso label. Hold shift to add to your selection. And just very carefully select around it. And now you've got your complete selection. Alright, here we go. We've reselected everything again. Same process, control click your layers. We added the nose. We're going to click layer 1, copy, paste. Okay, so now we've got our wolf that if we get rid of that, we've got our entire wolf. Now this is a method you can use to say, I will use this as an example. You can insert a background behind your manipulation. But that's not what we're doing here. We are going to this layer, which needs more oomph to it, and we're going to edit it. The first thing we're going to do is go into curves, because now she's got more contrast in the background. Draw your dark end. This is your dark end. I don't know if you've ever worked with curves before. I don't know if this is anywhere other than Photoshop, but this is how you edit photos. So we're going to bring this down very slightly and bring our brights up very slightly. And if we toggle our preview, it actually made our overall image darker. So we're going to bring our lights up a little bit more, and we're going to bring our mediums up a little bit more. There you go, see? It adds contrast, it pops the colors. And we're going to go up here now, back to image, adjustments. You'll have to maybe look in other programs on how to find this, but what you're looking for is color balance. Go ahead and click on that. It's going to give you the option to slide these sliders in here. Now we're going to go very slightly cyan, a bit more green, a bit more yellow. Actually, let's keep this pretty pretty neutral for there. A little more, I don't know, let's go a little more red, a little more green, a little more yellow, so that when you preview it, it's a little less yellow. Just have some fun with it. Figure out the balance that you want. Click OK. We're going to do auto tone, see if it changed anything. Auto color. Auto color takes it back a bit. Let's see how different. Yeah, okay, see that? That made it pretty different. So let's go ahead and do auto color on our image adjustments. We're going to go back into our color balance. We're going to up our green. Just our green. Nothing else. We're going to up our green. Highlights. Not at all. Not really. Shadows. Up a little bit. Okay. Now that made everything a bit more green. It also made our clouds a little green. So obviously we need to choose a different method. We're going to undo what we've done. So we're back to where we were. We're going to choose this. I'm going to set it to 20. Feather makes your selection soft, so that hopefully we won't also be changing our clouds. We might change our sky a little, but hopefully not enough that it matters. The other thing we're going to do, so that we don't edit our original image, is we're going to Control C and Control V. So now that our mountains are their own layer. Alright, now we're going to go back in. It's a lot of steps, it really is. We're going to go to Color Balance, and turn that green up now. And the shadows, turn the green up a little bit. Now it changes it. Actually, turn the green down here. Midtones, turn the green up. There we go. Okay. Image adjustments, we're going to go back into our curves, because remember we tweaked that a minute ago. We're going to do it again. It doesn't affect it as much this time. We're going to come in with Vibrance. Turn that background up, because I want it to look like she's out and about in the summertime. Okay, so we've gotten this far now. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our layer here, where we've separated our wolf, and we're going to duplicate that layer. This layer goes all the way on top of all the other layers. Remove our selection. We're going to go into hue saturation, and we're going to turn our saturation all the way down on this. We're going to go back into adjustments, brightness, contrast, brightness up, contrast down. Let's turn our brightness down a very little bit, so that there's hardly anything dark left in this image. Just these finer details. Now what we're doing here is we're just going to play with some layer settings. Multiply obviously makes it too dark. We're going to try overlay. Now overlay, you'll see, what overlay does is it takes the darks and makes them darker, and it makes the lights lighter. So we might use that. Soft light is the one we're looking at. Notice soft light kind of makes it a weird yellow color, but overlay like really heightens the oranges, so we might be coming back to that. We can play with hard light, which looks really interesting. There's vivid light, pretty interesting. Linear light, which we are familiar with, we used that earlier. Pen light is one I use a lot that specifically pulls out the lighting. Hard mix is another one you can use, but it makes the images hard. It's a very hard transition between the colors, say. Down here you see it's very pixelated. So maybe none of those. Difference is going to invert your colors. Exclusion is very similar. Subtract, very similar. Divide does some wonky stuff. Hue, it makes it the overall hue of this layer. Saturation does the same thing. Color, You get the idea. It's black and white, so it's going to make it black and white. Luminosity will take the brightness of what we've just placed it there. You can see it kind of washes out the colors. That's actually very pretty, but that's not what the look we're going for. Okay, so we're going to go back to overlay, which looked really good. And we're going to turn it down to about 30 to 40%. And what we do to see whether or not we like it as compared to before is we just show and hide our layer, which I do like it. It brightened her. She looks better. Okay, so we are very nearly complete. I'm going to merge all of my layers, which you can do by selecting them and hitting Control E so that it merges them all. Or you can do Shift or Control Shift E. Okay, we're going to hit Control A to select it all, copy it. Then if you've copied it, you've gotten to that point, so you have it in your clipboard, it's ready to go. Undo what you've just done. You do not want to get rid of your layers. Your layers are there for you to go back and make changes in the future if you want to. But now you've got a layer that if you hit Control V, this whole layer right here, layer 15, is our, quote, finished. It means we've already got all of our colors done, the image looks good. If you hide and show it, it doesn't look any different. All other edits are going to be on this layer. So this is where we can start playing with things like filters. The first thing I want to do is I want to go into Filter, Sharpen. We're going to sharpen one time. This sharpen helps pop your colors. And then we're going to go, I have Topaz Clean. We're going to play with that a little bit. We're going to put our strength up to 1. Now, I'll show you how to use this if you have the filter. It's an older filter. It's a legacy filter. I don't know whether you can still get it. Clean cleans up. If I select it, you can see the background here. It cleans it up and smooths it out. The higher your threshold, the more it does it. The lower your threshold, the less it does it. I tend to keep the threshold around 30. Depends on how much it washes out the fur of the wolf, which on here, it doesn't really wash it out that much, so I can turn it up a little bit, because I don't care if I lose detail in the background. Now, if you look here on the throat, it washes it out a little bit, and down here, it does wash it out a little bit. I don't use the texture at all, so we're going to disregard that. The next thing is edges, which is accents, so we can turn that all the way up. And I'm going to actually zoom in 300% so you can see what it does. It does this oil type of effect. The higher your radius, the more it does it. The lower your radius, the less it does it. I actually like the lower radius a little bit. We're not going to do it at 5 though. I usually do this part at 2 or even at 1. 1 looks good. I'm going to bring it up to 2 though. I like the texture it gives it. It's good. Alright, and we're going to turn our sharpness up because that makes our colors pop. So at 100%, this is I'm clicking to hold it. You can see that's without it and that's with it. Our sharpness is a little too high, so we'll take it down. Without, with, without, with, without, with. Okay, so that's with. It looks good. We're going to click OK. That's going to apply our filter. And here we can hide. Look at that. Yeah, see? We thought it looked good before. Now look how nice and sharp it looks. The only change I'm going to make, and I'm going to zoom in right here, when you apply a filter like this, let me hide my grid, it removes our eye details. That eye, we worked really hard to get pretty, so we're going to choose our eraser at a small size, say 21 at 100%. Ooh, no, I accidentally recessed Photoshop. Okay. On the layer we've just finished, we're going to re-erase that eye so that the eye color we worked so hard to get isn't lost. And we are more or less done. She is looking fantastic. On a new layer, this is entirely optional, but I know that a lot of people do it. Size 3 or a size 1. Size 1 is going to be a lot finer. Get your white brush, and you can come in here. Oh, oops. 100% opacity. And use this is where people add their edges. With their details, like something like this. On the outside. All this does is it's an artistic addition that adds definition that does not have to be exact. Do not, struggle with it if it's not exact. It adds definition to the image that helps highlight these key features of their face and stuff. You can do it a little bit in the eye and under the eye to help bring out their expression a little. And there you go. See, that makes their edge just defined right there. I don't like it as much on the nose, so I'm going to do that eraser at a 30%. Erase the hard edge right there. There you go, that softens it. I'm going to erase it a little more here. Oh, actually, that's not my brush. If you hide it and show it, that's part of the nose. So what I'm going to do instead is erase and make my line match that. There we go. That looks a lot better, see? And I'm thinking that she looks... I'm going to merge this down. So select this layer, Control E, merges it flat. With this one, I think her colors are a little too yellow now. So I'm going to see what happens if I do auto color. Now, auto color did something interesting here, and I'm not sure whether I like it. Image, auto color. It flattens my colors a little bit, and I have to decide whether or not I like it or not. So we'll do toggle it back and forth. I actually do like it. It gives it a nice filtered effect. So I do like it. We'll go with that, but I'm going to go back in. Oh, I did it again. We're going to go back into adjustments under color balance, and we're going to pop our red up very slightly, without with. Hit OK. We're going to go back into adjustments under vibrance and turn our vibrance up a bit. That's all the way. That's a little too much. We'll bring it down to about 70%. Okay. The only other thing I can think to do is reselect our mountains, select the inverse, and on the top layer, delete. Oh no, I accidentally deleted the face we just did. So we're going to reselect. We're going to remove where her face is. I don't want to delete her face. And then delete, deselect. Yeah, okay. Because that restores us a little bit more to our original sky color. Our clouds are gray. We'll just go ahead and deal with it. And there you have it. This is our completed image. She doesn't look too bad. She looks pretty good. Her grays are perhaps just a little bit too soft. So what we can do for that is we're going to hide that, because now that we've gone through all of that, her underparts, the grays we worked so hard on down here. So this layer, Control, click on it, you're selecting that exact layer, make our image visible, and we're going to come up here, we're going to paste white, only once, deselect. So we've selected everywhere we did gray. We're going to fill it in, and we're going to do overlay. Okay, so no, that didn't quite work the way I wanted it to. So we're going to delete that layer. Rather than do what we just did, we're going to go down where our grays are. That's not our grays, that's our fur. Why did we do her? Oh, we did it on the actual layer. Okay, this is fine. We're going to duplicate this layer and see what this layer is when we drag it on top of everything. Okay, so that's not the layer I thought it was. Disregard that layer. So I guess we'll have to do this manually. I didn't account for it ahead of time. So this is an extra step. We're done, but we're not. So recolor in. Again, similar to the soft light earlier, just blob in your color. It does not have to be exact. We will gently erase where we need to. We're just going to do this. We're going to select our layer down here, select inverse, and same step as earlier, delete our extra on the outside. Go ahead and deselect. Now we're going to make this gray. And we're going to set it to overlay first, just to see what overlay does. And then we're going to set it to multiply. I'm going to bring it back a bit, bring it up a bit. Now see that? Looks a lot more gray. The only other thing I can think to do is a soft light, but that doesn't do what we needed it to do. We're going to select from our original image, paste it up here. That gives us our original textures. And again, we're going to do soft light, too much. Multiply, too much. What if we turned this down a little bit? What if we turned our Control U brings this up, saturation all the way down? Oh, see, now that gets us closer to what we're wanting. Gosh, I don't know if... No, I think our primary issue here actually isn't even that it's not dark enough. It's that it's not gray enough. That's the problem. It's not that it's not dark enough, it's that it's not gray enough. Okay, so we've reselected our gray areas, and we'll just make it more gray. And then again, we come in with our brush and we gently lighten where we need to, like we wanted on the edge down here. Okay, now hide, show. Yes, see that is much more gray? That's what we were doing. We can go ahead and merge this layer down. Hold on, how did merging that down affect it? Okay, it affects here. It affects down here, so we'll erase that. Oh, excuse me. I don't really have a way to mute myself. Give me a moment here. Sorry about that. I'm gonna scratchy throat right now. And let's zoom it out. That's there we go. Now she's done. And she looks good. She's beautiful. And that, my friends, is how we do that. You can then from there crop it however you want for avatars or whatever. We're done. We're just going to go ahead and save it. Well, I save everything to the desktop. It's up to you. Cecily, we're going to save the raw file, Photoshop. And then I'm going to save it again as a PNG, or ping, as I like to call them. There you go. That's it. 45 minutes later. I hope you enjoyed. I will do more of these if people want me to. That's pretty much it. It's not too hard. It's just a lot of steps. It's a little bit tedious. My next one is going to be a little more organized. Have fun.